Hi, welcome back to True Crime Sages. I'm Tina Cummins, back with the Summer Wells case, part 6. So last night, there was a video on Voices Behind the Wall where they had recorded Don Wells, and I'd like to go over some of the things that he had stated. He'd cleared up some things, which is good. There's some other stuff that I'm kind of curious about, but so let's go over this. Okay, let me adjust this real quickly. There we go. Okay, so number one, they start off by, prefacing that there are a couple hours unaccounted for, a couple hours missing in the timeline with Candace. And Don says he believes Candace, he said that she's not that devious like that, and that she loves her daughter with all her heart. So when he was questioned about Hunter and Allie, he said that he believes there was kind of a CPS exchange revenge, that Hunter and Allie believed that they'd called CPS on them, which and Hunter and Allie had called CPS on them, on Candace and Don, and it was going kind of back and forth. And he says he doesn't think they're involved. So Don said, he's been out talking to the neighbors at night after he gets off work. And he said, in talking to the neighbors, about child predators that would be in the area, like signing your own death warrant if they took Summer. He said that they would come after you, whomever you is, who he's referring to. Now he's off of the local child molester thing, or violent predator. So then he said he started to wondering about TikTok and Facebook if someone didn't see Summer. He said he starts to think personally that somebody had seen her on Facebook or TikTok and decided that they wanted her for herself. Now, again, he uses feminine pronoun herself. Before, in the other video, he said she put her in her car or her truck. She put her in her truck, sorry. So that makes me wonder who the she he keeps referring to is. Freudian slip or not. Who's the she, Don? And then he said that, or it is the sex trade thing, or I don't know, but that's what I'm starting to lean toward personally. So, Freudian slip or not, who's the she? Need to know that. So he was asked about the timeline, and he was asked to run through the day, the morning routine, et cetera, et cetera. And he went over the timeline. He said he'd went over the timeline with Candace several times. He said they seemed satisfied, which is an interesting choice of words. He said initially she'd left out some things like doing a load of laundry, maybe getting a bite to eat, and folding clothes. That probably took up to an hour. So I'm guessing that would cover the 40 minutes that Chris McDonough is talking about, unless he's talking about the ride home. Interesting choice of words, satisfied and maybe she got a bite to eat. Did she or didn't she? What did they do? He said things like that when, quote unquote, we originally, then he said when she originally put that out there, it sounded like she just threw in a load in the washer, but it was a lot more than that. It ended up taking like an hour. But so we was able to figure out the timeline down pretty well. And I think they seem satisfied with that. Curious word, satisfied there. And it all made sense. So then they discussed the swimming hole, going to the swim hole until the prescription was ready. And he said all he can remember about the conversation he had with lunch at Candace was that they were going to the swimming hole until the prescription was ready. He said it didn't even occur to him that the boys were home locked in. He said he didn't realize the boys were home himself. Boys didn't want to go to go a lot on different occasions because they wanted to sit home and be on their phone, which does make sense. Then he said he doesn't think or realize or thought about the boys at that time, talking about that conversation. So if that's true, then why mention a child molester possibly being on the property? So there's a question for you. He said at times he met them after work many times and went to the swimming hole or went wherever, but most of the time he would be tired, so he'd go home from work. He was talking about the neighbors, and he said people don't think it's someone from the area at all. He said the dog followed her scent to the road and up the road just a little ways before her scent disappeared. And they never could pick up her scent anywhere else out in the woods or around the property anywhere. So that pretty well tells you she was put into a car. She was definitely led down the road. Now, how does he know she was definitely led down the road unless he was there? Curious question. But he said, quote unquote, she was definitely led down the road, meaning that she was led by someone. He said he believes her scent went down the dog trail and up the road just a little ways, probably more like where my driveway was, or they won't tell us all that information. So first he said, well, you know, it stopped at a certain point and down the road a little ways, but they won't tell him that information. He said he had some people ask, and that was the information that he could find out. He said he doesn't know if he was asked about the missing case of his sister-in-law, Rose Bly. And he said he doesn't know if it's tied to his sister-in-law or not. He said, we have no idea. When asked if he was questioned by police because of some of the speculation and rumors out there, they said they were in Arkansas when it happened, and they were not questioned extensively by the police. That some people had asked them some questions, a few questions, but not police. So moving on. Moment. So the 40 minutes, they get back to the 40 minutes of the timeline. He said TBI, again, he said TBI seemed to be satisfied with it. He said, as soon as we found the holes in it, we called them and told him, and he said, okay, that makes a lot of sense. He seemed really happy about it, is what he stated about this person he gave the timeline of events to. He said he doesn't know what the critical 40 minutes is that Chris McDonough is referring to. He says, because we counted for almost every minute. Then when asked about the drive home, he said that he made it home in 30 to 35 minutes. It normally takes about 45 minutes. So the interviewers were saying that, you know, the public is trying to make mom look bad again, flip-flopping, talking about her criminal history. And he was asked if it was a regular day or, you know, if it was an ordinary day, something to that effect. And he said it was a regular day that turned out to be the most horrible day of his life. And then he goes back to, you know, Summer, how she's the love, you know, his love in his life, the greatest gift that God ever gave him. And then he was asked again, something to the effect of, you know, what he thought happened. And he said he's starting to think that she was targeted. Then he was asked about the church. Some people referring to the SDA as a cult, kind of like FLDS, you know, it's a cult. He was talking about how that's how Satan rips people apart. Anything that's happy, it's good. Satan tears it apart. He said, I find this interesting. He said he strictly goes by the Bible. And as he's saying, he strictly goes by the Bible, he's shaking his head no. Just throwing that out there. But, you know, I'm not going to question his beliefs in Christ. You know, that's his beliefs. But yeah, everybody messes up. Everybody's a sinner. Let's just get that out of the way. So when asked if he went home that day because of the conspiracy theories, and there's some question of whether he went home that day or if it was the day before, he said he didn't go home that day. And it was verified by his coworkers and his boss that he was at work. And again, he talked about the boss making fun of him for taking a red Subaru, the new car, into work and using it for drywall. Now there were 2 calls to 911. One was at 6:23, one was at 6:29. And then, okay, so here's another switch in the timeline. He said he left work around 6:30, and they deduced that he had got home around 7:10. So again, first it was 5:30, then it was 6:30, now it's 7:10. It's a little confusing, perhaps he doesn't know exactly or precisely when it was. He was asked about Summer, whether or not she had tried to run off, and he said no, she never tried to run off. He said at church a couple of times she went outside with some older teenage girls, and they like to I don't know, go down the slope or something like that. It's a place where the kids would play. And he said she looked up to the other girls, but after they started talking to her about running off, she kind of stopped that. He said quote, he thinks she got the message. Asked again about whether or not she was registered for school. He said she was registered, all her shots were up to date, and she got her well checked. So he was asked again about the feeling that something bad was going to happen to Summer. And he said it's kind of like a premonition that he always had a deep down feeling that something was going to happen to her. And now he's attributing that to a guardian angel, which, some people may find suspicious. I don't necessarily. Okay, so he was asked about the land that's out there for sale. And he said there were a lot of people out there looking at the land for sale. But then he mentioned a guy named Dobbs. I don't know who this person is, and said the guy had a camp down there. No idea who Dobbs is. So that's a curious point. He insists that she was put into a car. And he said after talking to the neighbors, they wouldn't be able to live in the area, referring to a child molester, that they wouldn't worry about the cops, inferring that, the neighbors that he had spoken to would do something not above board to the child molesters. So they're not worried about the cops, that they would take care of them, that it's a new level of disrespect. In saying that is, to me, it's kind of like a doper that, how can you believe that? There are registered sex offenders in the area. It's a fact. So obviously, I don't want anybody taking vigilante justice here. We don't know who did this, but if you have 10 child molesters, one of them could be responsible. If you got 15, anyway, we don't want vigilante justice here. This is for law enforcement. But that said, if a drug addict is searching for, they'll search for your medicine while it's in their pocket. A child molester or a neighbor, even if you don't know if they're on a sex offender registry, they could be looking at you straight in the face and say, oh no, I don't have her. James Brian Chadwell opened the door for police, had a 9-year-old girl in his basement, and the dumbass thought that, police weren't going to come in and find her because he had put a chain on the outside of the door going down to the basement. Well, of course they're going to break the chain and go look. He said he'd seen the kids. So yeah, they're coming in. I mean, what a moron. But he stood right there and lied to law enforcement. I mean, does Don really think that child molesters not going to lie to his face? Or, is that his way of distancing himself from the child molester thing? Good question. So in regard to Jose, he said it's not the same Jose, even though they have the same name. It's a different person as the sex offender in Utah named Jose. He said it seems to him he thinks she may have been profiled off of TikTok. Now it's interesting, he didn't comment on Tony Hammond's, but now he doesn't believe it's a local child molester. Then he also said that his coworker isn't being forthcoming, that things aren't matching up and they're still dealing with him. So there's a lot of questions about this interview, that this particular interview sparked. The first one I want to know is, who is the she? Who's the she that he slips and refers to? She put her in her truck. She may have taken her for herself. Very interesting. I want to know who the she is. Who is the she he's referring to? Is it Candace? Is it someone that he's aware of? Someone that, you know, he has a suspicion about? Who's the she? Also, who's the Stobbs character that had a camp down there? Now he says, it's interesting. He says, put her in her car, but they're looking for a red Toyota Tacoma. Also, there was a video out where he claimed that there was screams heard right after Summer went missing that was supposedly reported. But, and now we have the footprints. So according to the neighbor, you know, there was a small footprint that didn't belong to his kids that was found in his yard, her yard, whatever. Don't know if it's a he or she. Not going to go into that. But anyway, footprint there and a footprint in another neighbor's yard. But yet Don insisted that she was led down the path. How does he know that? Were there footprints on the path? Did somebody tell him something? So, you know, there's still a lot of questions surrounding it. It's still all up in the air, but, you know, there are a few more questions. Laundry, I don't know how long it takes to fold a load of laundry. I'm guessing 10 minutes. Takes you a little time to gather it up, throw it in a washer, throw it in a dryer. Be interesting to see the videos of the house and, you know, see the freshly folded laundry and, you know, what have you. Maybe they got something to eat, or maybe they didn't. Apparently Don doesn't know. So, you know, maybe that's part of the timeline. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. If you don't know, then how can we know? So anyway, still praying for little Summer. They discussed whether or not there were wells on the property. Said the property owner surrounding the place claimed, the old man claimed that there had been at some time, that he even went out and looked for them. Don't know if they found them. So now Don is no longer focused on a local child molester. I'm guessing in his mind, he's cleared up the timeline. Again, I don't know if these parents are, at this point, we don't know who did it. Now, I'm not going to say law enforcement doesn't know information. They know a whole lot more than the public. They have the scene. They have evidence, I'm sure, that they've gathered, footprints, anything someone may have left. Yeah. They have statements, they have timeline, they have a lot more information than the public has. So everybody's innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Ironically, Don didn't address at all the statements that a stepsister made, her possibly taking him to court for the accusations that she's made. Maybe he'll address that tonight on Voices Behind the Wall. I don't know. Again, I'm not accusing him of anything. So look, if he was at work, we don't know what happened in the house with Summer. They lived there for years. Who knows what happened with that child? I guess that would be Dawn and Summer and Candace. But in regard to her disappearance, that's a total you know, that's a total other ball game, you know. And again, I'm sure police have the timeline. They have the cell phone pings. They know whether or not their stories corroborate. So I guess we'll leave it there for now. But let me ask you, Don, who's the she that you keep referring to? If you could let us know, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the day, and please pray for Summer. If you have any information on this case or any other case in Tennessee, you can call 1-800-TBI-FIND, or you can call the FBI number of missing and exploited children at 1-800-THE-LOST. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.